go to exercise 17.4b. So let's do question 1. So question 1, so we have, let's go to A. So in A we have y. So we have y is equal to mx plus c. So we are required to make m the subject of the formula. So we are required to make m the subject of the formula. So to do that, we can subtract c both sides. So we need to subtract c both sides. So here this would be 0, and then here we have y minus c, which is equal to m times x. So now we'll be left with this part, because now we want x. So what we'll do is that we'll divide, because m is multiplied x, so we need to divide it both sides. So, and then our final answer will be x. Okay, use a different pen. So answer will be, so our answer will be x is equal to y minus c over m. So let's go to the next question. So here we can let's go to B. So B. So in B we have v is equal to u plus at, and we are required to make t the subject of the formula. So here our first step, because we want this t, so we need to subtract. Okay, first of all, to simplify our problem, we need to take this to that side. So we will have a v minus u, because here it's positive, so the opposite of positive is taking a negative. So this will be equal to at. So now, because we want the t, so a times a is multiplied t, so the opposite of multiplying would be dividing. So we need to divide by a both sides. So our final answer, now will be t is equal to v minus u over a. So this will be our final answer. So now let's go to C. So in C we have P. So in C we have P is equal to 2 times A plus B, and we're required to make B the subject of the formula. So we're required to make B the subject of the formula. So because this is in brackets, there's not much you can do. So we need to expand. First, let's expand. So 2 times A plus 2 times B, which is all equal to P. So because we need B to be the subject, we can maybe take this to that side, and what we can do, because here it's a positive, so we do the opposite. So we need to subtract 2a both sides, minus 2a both sides. So from the left hand side we have p minus 2a, which is equal, because this will be 0, so it's equal to 2b. So now our final step will be now to divide by 2 both sides. So divide by 2 both sides, that this cancels this. So our final answer now will be b is equal to p minus 2a all over 2. So this will be our final answer. So maybe let's go to, okay, I think D is much quicker, will be much quicker. So in D we have V is equal to pi r squared h. So we are required to make h the subject of the formula. Since all here this has multiplied pi r squared h squared. So all these part is multiplying, so the opposite of multiplying will be dividing. So we need to divide by pi r squared because we want h to be left alone. So we divide this both sides. So this will cancel this, such that from the right hand side we are left with h, and then from the left hand side we have v divided by r squared. So this would be a answer. So the same thing with e, where you divide the 2 pi h, and maybe let's go to g, no, f. Let's go to f. Maybe let's go to f before we go to g. In f, we have, so in f, okay, in f we have g. So g is equal to a, and then a, b plus c, all divided by 3. So we're required to make c the subject of the formula. So here, because you can't deal c as it is in bracket, so we need to expand the bracket. So when you expand the bracket, you'll have ab plus ac all divided by 3. So now our step will be let me write it here now. So it's ab plus ac all divided by 3. So now our step will be to multiply, to remove this 3. So we need to multiply 3 both sides. So multiply by 3 because the 3 is divided here, so we need to multiply it. So this 3 cancel this 3, so that this side, the left side, we have 3g, which is equal to ab plus ac. So because we want c, we can then take this part, this side. So how do we take it? We subtract ab both sides, so minus ab both sides, such that we have, so if we do that, we'll have 3g minus ab is equal to ac. So let me write it. So we'll have 3g, so we'll have 3g minus ab is equal to ac. So remember, we are solving for c. If we are solving for c, a has multiplied c, so the opposite of multiplying would be dividing. So we need to divide a both sides, so that here cancel this, and then we are left from the left hand side we have 3g minus ab all divided by a, which is equal to c. So there we have our solution. We have made c the subject of the formula. So let's proceed to y. So in y we have w equal to 11x divided by y plus 2, and here we need to make y the subject of the formula. So because we want y, before we even multiply out the denominator, we can simply see that maybe if we start by subtracting 2 both sides, so minus 2 both sides, so this side would have y minus 2, which is 11x over y, because the side is 0. So now we can then talk of can we put this in bracket first? So now, because we want y, you can then multiply y both sides. So say multiply by y, multiply by y both sides, and then what we have, okay, this will cancel this. So from the right hand side we have 11 x. So here we have y brackets y minus w minus 2. So because we want y, we can then divide by w minus 2 both sides, w minus 2 both sides, so such that we'll be left with y is equal to 11x over y w minus 2. So this would be our final answer. So final answer will be final answer will be y is equal to 11x divided by w minus 2. So now let's proceed. So now we go to h. So in h we have g is equal to a over a plus b. So we want to make b the subject of the formula. So we want to make b the subject of the formula. But since b is in the denominator, so we need to sort it, or we need to put it in the numerator. So in order to make it the subject, so what we do is that we would multiply both sides by a plus b. A okay, so a plus b. So this would be times here. So and then this would cancel this. So from the right hand side we have g multiplying a plus b equal to a. But then here, so we have b here, so we need to remove the brackets so that we'll have ag. So this would be g times a plus g times b, which will be bg, and then equal to a. And now we have that we have b this side, so it would be convenient now to take this guy to that side. So how can you do that? So we can do that okay, we can do that by subtracting ag both sides. So subtracting ag both sides. So when we subtract ag both sides, you are left with b g equal to a minus a g. So we have b g equal to a minus a g. So now so because now we have, okay, let me write again. So it's b g equal to a minus a g. So because g has multiplied b, so we need to do the opposite of dividing, or the inverse. Actually it's called an inverse, so we need to do the inverse of multiplying, which is dividing, and then dividing by g both sides. So this g cancel this, and we are left with that b is equal to a minus ag, all dividing by g. So now let's go to question 2, and let's do a. So question 2a says we need to transpose to x. So we have y is equal to 4ax, so 4ax over 5 minus half a. So we need to make x the subject of the formula. So we need to make x, so we need to make this guy the subject of the formula. So many ways we can tackle this, but remember that we can maybe sort out maybe the denominators. So 2 times 5 would give us 10. So we can use the 10 to remove all the denominators. So we can also use the lowest common multiple of these numbers. So we can also use them. So but I've chosen to use 5 times 2, which is 10, to also do the trick. So here what we need now is to multiply each term. Okay, it's either I say you multiply each term, or you multiply everything by 10, or you multiply both sides by 10, like this. So the left hand side would have 10y, and then inside we'll have 4 times 10 all over 5 ax minus, then it will be 10 over 2 times a. So we'll have that 10y. So here 4 times okay, maybe I say 5 goes to 10 2 times, and then 8 is 4 times 2, which is 8. So we'll have that this will be 8a, so this will be 8ax, and then here it will be minus 5a. So now, because we want to make I'm not mistaken, if you want to make x the subject of the formula, so we want to make this the subject of the formula. So what do we have? We have 10y equal to 8ax minus 5a. So maybe let's expand. Let's make the working clear. So we have 10y and we have 8ax minus 5a, and you want to make x the subject of the formula. So it would be convenient to take this part to the other side, to this side. So how do we go about that? Because we have a minus 5a, so we'll make it 0 by adding a 5a. So adding 5a both sides, so to make this part 0. And then from the left hand side we have 10y plus 5a, which is equal to 8ax. So 8a has multiplied x, so the opposite of multiplying, or the inverse of multiplying, would be dividing. So we'll be dividing by 8a both sides, so it would be 8a both sides. So the right hand side will have x, and the left hand side will have 10y plus 5a all divided by 8a. So this will be our final solution. So we have made x the subject of the formula. So I think f is the simplest in B, making f the subject of the formula B. So maybe okay, let me check even G. We're making G in C. Okay, maybe let me do in B. B is very B will be the one of the quickest one, because G is equal to h over so here, oh, I think there's a problem here. So it's supposed to be maybe a here, then this would be h, and then minus f. So here you simply add the f both sides, so you'll add f both sides, so say plus f, so you'll have g plus f, so this would be 0, and here you'll have it a 2h, and then the final step now should be subtracting g both sides. So if you subtract g both sides, so you'll be left with f is equal to a over 2h minus g. So this would be the solution. So we've made f the subject of the formula. Also in C, where we have p is equal to 5 and t plus 3 minus g over 5. So here a quicker way would be to add, because we want to make g the subject of the formula, so we can maybe add g over 5 both sides, so g over 5 both sides, so this would be 0, and then we'll have from the left hand side you'll have p plus g over 5 is equal to 5 plus over t plus 3, and then so we need, and then the final step, okay, not final step, but one of the steps would be now to subtract p both sides. So subtracting p both sides, so this would be 0, and then we'll be left with g over 5 is equal to 5 all over t plus 3 minus p, and then finally we'll multiply by 5 both sides to make g the subject of the formula. So we multiply, okay, here we multiply everything by 5. So our final solution, okay, so our final solution, because we now will be final solution will be g is equal to 5 multiplying 5 over t plus 3 minus p. And also we need to put this in a simplest form. So a simplest form would be g, because here we need to multiply, okay, maybe t plus 3 p, so we need to multiply in, maybe what is 25 times 5 is 25, so this would be 25 over t plus 3 minus 5p. So this would be the simplest form. This would be in the simplest form. And then what would be the next question? So let's go to D. So in D we have, okay, D we have M. So in D we need to transpose and make T the subject of the formula. So we have M is equal to 2R minus 1 all over T multiplying, so over T multiplying brackets of S plus 1. So we need to make T the subject of the formula. So here, because t is in the denominator, what we can do is to take everything out. Also, what we can do is that we can remove the denominator, and so that we'll have t in the numerator. So we can do that because the t times brackets of s plus 1 has divided. So here the opposite of dividing will be okay, let me do this so that, okay, so what we can do now is to multiply it. So this goes to here one time, so 1 times the whole thing here. We need to multiply, actually we need to multiply this t s plus 1 both sides. So here this would give us 1, and then 1 times 2r minus 1 would be 2r minus 1. So this side will have m multiplying, okay, m, okay, let me do this. So this side will have m times t s plus 1. So m times t is mt, and then s plus 1 equal to 2r minus 1. So here we want to make t the subject of the formula. So we have mt s plus 1 equal to 2r minus 1. So what we can, okay, maybe now I can take the t from here just for convenience, and then here I'll have s plus 1, and then this should be equal to 2r minus 1. So as you can see, there is a t here and multiplying everything here. So what I'll need now, the opposite of multiplying is dividing. So I need to divide this thing, divide this guy both sides. So m times the brackets of s plus 1, such that here this will cancel this, and it will be 1 times t, which is t. And this side will 2r minus 1 all over m times s plus 1. So this is where we made t the subject of the formula. So let's quickly go to h. Is it h or e? Sorry, let's go to e, where we make r the subject of the formula. So this is, so in e we have m is equal to 2r minus 1 all over t s plus 1. This is the same question, but now we we're making r the subject of the formula. So again, we need to multiply by the whole thing. So we need to multiply by the whole thing to that side. So s plus 1 t s plus 1 multiplying here. So this will cancel this and it will have 1, and then 1 times this thing, we have that we have 2r minus 1. And this side will have mt s plus 1. So now we need to make r the subject of the formula. So a convenient way, because we want to make r the subject of the formula, so a convenient way is to remove this guy to that side. So how do we do that? We can then add 1 both sides, so it should be plus 1 both sides, such that this guy will be 0. So this guy will be 0. So okay, so from the right hand side we have 2r, and from the left hand side we have mt s plus 1 or plus 1. So now we need to divide by 2 both sides. Divide by 2 both sides. This looks very complicated, but it doesn't matter as long as you have made r the subject of the formula, because the problem here requires us to make r the subject of the formula. Whether the other side of r is a very complicated equation, as long as you have made r the subject of the formula and you have used the correct methods, so this is the answer. So but when they say maybe simplify it, this way you can then maybe divide, and here the case divide by 2, and then you have separate fractions or something like that. So but they have not instructed you to do that, so I'll just say leave the answer like this. So here this would be your answer. So this would be simply your answer. So this is just r. So this you have made r the subject of the formula. So in t you do the same as, or in s. Okay, let's do this one. Let's do this one because it's a bit different. So in f we have m is equal to 2r minus 1 all over t s plus 1. So again you need to remove the denominator because you want s to be in the numerator. So we multiply. So we'll multiply by t s plus 1 both sides, t s plus 1 both sides. So this cancel this, and you have 1 times 2r minus 1, which is 2r minus 1. At this side, so at this side we have mt s plus 1, but remember we are making s the subject of the formula. This means that you need to sort, or this means that you need to expand. So it will have mt s plus 1 equal to 2r minus 1. So here you can see that you can take the positive 1 to the other side. So subtract 1 both sides, subtract 1 both sides. So we'll have mt s is equal to 2r minus 2, because negative 1 minus 1. And now remember we want okay, maybe so we have mts is equal to 2r minus 2. So remember we are making what? We are making s the subject of the formula. So if we have, okay, we have mts equal 2r minus 2. So we want to make s the subject of the formula, but s has multiplied, mt has multiplied s, so we need to divide by mt both sides. Mt both sides. So this will cancel this, so this will be 1 times s, which is s, and this side we have 2r minus 2 all over mt. So we've made s the subject of the formula. So in exercise 17.4d, you are required to transpose. So you are doing the same thing but at different levels now, the levels of difficulty. So a, we have p is equal to 5a squared, and we are required to make a, we need to transpose to a, so we are required to make a the subject of the formula. So here a convenient way here will be, because we want a, so we need to divide by 5 both sides, divide by 5 both sides, either this 5 cancel this 5, so we have 1 times a squared, which is a squared. So the other side, okay, let me write maybe like this, 5 equal to a squared. So the opposite of squaring is taking a square root. You know that opposite of, okay, if I want to, okay, maybe do it like this. If I want a, if I'm given a, okay, if I take square root of a, I'll have a. So here the opposite of squaring, actually what I'm trying to say, is taking a square root. This goes even if they were given something, okay, so you are given now a to the power 3 cube, so you will take a cube root. Opposite of taking a cube is taking a cube root. So I hope you remember that actually if I say I'm taking a square root, what am I doing actually? If I have can I use a very clear pen? So if I'm saying I'm taking a square root, this is the same thing as taking a power of 1 over 2, because you see that this part, okay, oops. So you can see that, okay, what is happening? So you can see that this part is 2 times 1 over 2, which is 1, so that's why you have that a. So the same way, now, if you have a cube, and taking a cube root will be, okay, so you have a cube, so you have a cube which is, and then now you're taking a cube root, so this is the same as taking this to the power of 1 over 3, and then now 3 times 1 over 3 gives us 1, so this is the same thing as a. So the opposite of cubing is taking the cube root, or taking this to the power 1 over 3. So let's go back to the question. So if we go back to the question, so now we have a squared. So how are we going to sort this? So from what I've said is that you simply take this to the power 1 over 2 both sides, 1 over 2 both sides. So here you will have so this will be 2 times half, which will give you a to the power 1, which is a. On this side you'll have this, just leave it like this, or you know that because this is a very 1 over power to the okay, the power of 1 over 2 is a very common one, which is called the square root. So in other language you would say this is taking a square root of everything inside, which is p over 5 equal to a. So this is the same thing. So let's go to the next one, which is okay, in B. So let's go to B. So in B, so what is B saying? So B, we have a pi r squared, and we are required to make r the subject of the formula. So this is the same thing. This is the same thing as the SA. So here we have a equal to pi r squared. So we are making r the subject of the formula. So we need to divide by pi both sides. So we need to divide by pi both sides. Pi both sides. So this will cancel this, and this side we are left with r squared. Now the opposite of squaring is taking a square root. So we need to take a square root both sides. So we need to take a square root both sides. Square root both sides. Side that from the right hand side you are left with r. So you can think it as like this. This cancel this. You can think it even though that's not what is happening. Actually, what's happening is the thing I've told you that here is more like you might this is to the power 1 over 2. So now 2 times 1 over 2, which is 1, because the 2 cancel each other, so we're left with r. So this is what is happening actually. So let's go to C, where we are required to find a t, or when transposed to t. So here C, we have S is equal to half g t squared. So here it would be convenient now to sort the denominator, whereby we need to multiply by 2 both sides. Multiply by 2 both sides, so that these 2 cancel these 2, and from the right hand side we are left with g t squared. So now remember, we want to make t the subject of the formula. So we have 2s is equal to g t squared. So we are required to make t the subject of the formula. So it will be convenient now to divide, because the g is multiplied, so it's convenient to divide it, and then this side we are left with t. So we will be left with t squared. So our final step now, okay, let me write it here. Let me write this. So we have 2s over, so it's 2s over g. So here we have t squared. So the opposite of squaring will be taking the square root. So that's why you need to take a square root both sides. Take square root along square root this side. This will be equal to t. The right hand side will be equal to t. So we have made t the subject of the formula. So maybe, so the same thing with d, or maybe let's try e, because e looks very complicated, but it's not very complicated. It's just that it involves a lot of terms. So in e we have a, so we have a equal v squared minus u squared all over 2s. So we want to make what u, so we want to make u the subject of the formula. So maybe let me copy. So here we need to sort the denominator, which we need to multiply by 2s both sides. 2s both sides. So this would cancel this. So from the left hand side we have 2as, and the right hand side we have v squared minus u squared. So maybe it will be convenient to add u squared both sides. U squared both sides, so that this will be 0, and then here you'll have u squared plus 2as equal to v squared. Now because we want u to be the subject, so it would be convenient now to take this guy. So it would be convenient to take this guy that side. So how do we go about that? So because here, okay, oops. So okay, So because here it has added, 2as has added, so the opposite of adding would be subtracting. So we need to subtract 2as both sides. Subtract 2as both sides. So this on the left side will have 0. So this would be 0. And then on the left hand side we have u squared is equal to v squared minus 2as. So what do we have? We have u squared equal to v squared minus 2as. So let's complete that. So say u squared equal to v squared minus 2as. So we want to because now we have u squared instead of u, so what would be the next step? So our next step can we group this first? So it should be taking, because this has squared, so we need to take the square root. So we need to take the square root both sides. So we'll have u is equal to the square root of v squared minus 2as, so all squared. So this will be u as the subject of the formula. So f I think f is okay. So maybe let's go now. Like in question 1 we had square root, we were squaring and we were taking the opposite of squaring, which was taking a square root. Now in question 2 we have the square root, and you'll see that opposite of a square root is taking a square, so it's vice versa. So now in question 2, let's do a. So in a we have m is equal to the square root of a. So now the opposite of taking a square root is squaring. So now we need to just square both sides. So we need to square both sides. So from the left hand side we have m squared, and here this would cancel this, so we'll be left with a. So if I can write it in this form, remember that the square root of a is simply as a to the power 1 over 2, and now when I'm saying I'm squaring it, I'm squaring this, so it means that I'm taking it to the power 2, and you see, and you can clearly see now that these two will cancel these two, and will be left with a. So that's why we have this. So the opposite of squaring, taking a square root, and then also the opposite of a square root is squaring or taking a power 2. So we must have that in mind. So let's do another problem. So in b, okay, maybe it's 2b. So b we have y. So we have y is equal to 7 square root of x. So here we are required to make x the subject of the formula. So it would be convenient first to sort the 7, because if we take something like if we take a power here, we can do it like this. We can take the power 2, or we can square both sides like this. So but the problem is, you must remember that from this law, okay, let me write this law here. So we must remember that from this law, a, b, so this will be equal to a squared times b squared. So this is the law that you need to apply. I hope you have studied these laws of indices. And then so here this means that we'll have 7 squared, because remember now square root of x, then you take a square of the square root, so you'll be left with x only. So this would be x only. So what is square root of 7? I think is 49. So this side will have y squared, so this will be y squared, and this will be 49x. And then now you need to divide by 49 both sides, so we divide by 49 both sides. 49 both sides, you'll have y squared over 49 is equal to x. This will cancel this. So but instead of doing this, you can tackle the problem. Instead of doing this, let's say maybe you have forgotten this law. I've shown you that a times b all squared is equal to a squared times b squared. Say you've forgotten that, but I don't advise you to forget rules. For the same problem, we have y equal to 7 square root of x. So here a simple way will be to divide this 7 both sides. We'll remove it from here, so that on the right hand side we will be left with the square root of x. So and now since we have y over 7 equal to the square root of x, so the opposite of taking a square root is squaring. So we need to square both sides, so put this in bracket and square. So here you will have x, remember this, you will have x, and then this side you will have y over 7 squared. And then when you simplify that, this is simply as y squared over 49 is equal to x. So this is in the simplest form. So if they required you to leave your answer in the simplest form, but if they didn't, you can leave it in this form. They didn't require to leave it in the simplest form. So let's go to the next one. Okay, maybe C. Okay, C. Let's go to C. So C, we have we have P. P is equal to the square root of A over B. And then we are required here. So here we are required to make B the subject of the formula. So there are two ways, actually there are many ways of doing this. So but I wanted you, I hope you know this rule now. The square root of A over B is the same thing as taking the square root of A, then dividing the square root of B. I hope you know that. So you can do that, but I'm just complicating the problem because I want to check if you know the rules. So now you have square root of A dividing the square root of B, and you are required, what are we required to find? So we are required we are required to make B the subject of the formula. So what we can do now is to multiply by the square root of B, multiply by the square root of B both sides, so that this cancels this. So here we have P square root of B is equal to the square root of A. So now we divide by P both sides. When you divide by P both sides, you will have square root of B is equal to the square root of A over P. So this, and remember now we need to take, so the next step now is to take the opposite of square root, which is squaring. So when you square both sides, you'll have that B is equal to okay, square root of A. So this will be A over P squared. Okay, this will be our B, but this I don't advise to take the problem in this way, but I only did this way so that to check or remind you of the rules. Or sometimes the problem will require you to maybe to take this step, or it will check you if you remember these rules. But here, let's do the problem in a way that I would like you to also to tackle it. So because here we're taking a square root of a divided by b, so remember the opposite of squaring, or the opposite of square root is taking or is squaring. So this will make this to the power 2, so we need to do this both sides. So this will be, so we make p also to the power 2. So this 2 will cancel the square root, and so we'll be left with a over b is equal to p squared. So p squared is equal to a over b. So remember, we want to make b the subject of the formula. So we multiply by b both sides, multiply by b both sides, so that b cancel b. So here we'll be left with a, and then we'll have b. So we'll have bp squared is equal to a, because we want b, so it would be convenient to divide by p squared, which has multiplied b. So the inverse of, or the opposite of multiplying is dividing, so that's why we divide by p squared. So this will cancel this, so we'll be left with b. Okay, so we'll be left with b is equal to a over p squared. So remember, we got the same answer. So this will be the answer. So we have made b the subject of the formula. So now, if we go to e, okay, let's go quickly to e. E shares the same idea as the above. Okay, did I jump d? Okay, I think let me do d, because it's tricky. So in d we have t. Okay, this is d. This will be d. So d will be this will be 3. If I'm not mistaken, this will be 3 times the square root of p over q. So here I advise that you divide. So first thing first, you divide by 3 both sides, so that this side will be left with p over q, and then you have that t over 3 is equal to the square root of p over q. And now the opposite of taking a square root is squaring. So that means that you put this to the power 2, put this to the power 2. So you do that both sides. So if you do that, this side, the right hand side will have p over q, and then so you'll have t over 3 all squared is equal to p over q. So, and then that will be, okay, let me write it. So we have t over 3 all squared equal to p over q. So we are required to make what? We are required to make p the subject of the formula. So we will do that by dividing by q both sides. So removing the denominator, so that will this side, the right hand side, we have the p only. So the final answer will be q times, maybe let's simplify the t over 3 squared, which is okay, so t squared, so t to the power 2 is t squared, and then 3 to the power 2 is 9. So this is what we have, equal to p. So this is what we have, and then we have made p the subject of the formula. So in e, okay, let me do it. So in e we have n equal p plus q over over 2 all under the square root. So here the first step here is to remove the square root. So you remove a square root by taking or by squaring. So we need to square both sides. So we'll have n squared is equal, because here we have removed the square root, so this will be p plus q all over 2. So here you know that because we want p the subject of the formula, so we multiply by p by 2 both sides, multiply by 2 both sides, multiply by 2 both sides, so that this cancel this, and this side we have p plus q, and then you know that okay, so what do we have? We have 2n squared is equal to p plus q. So if you have this, then we'll have, okay, we have 2n squared equal p plus q. So because we want p the subject, so we want p the subject of the formula, so we need to subtract q both sides. So subtract q both sides, so that we'll have this equal to 0, and the right hand side will be left with p, and this side, and the left hand side will have 2n squared minus q. So we've made p the subject of the formula. So in f, okay, let's see if I can cover f. So if I can cover f, okay, I can cover f. So let's quickly go to f. So in f we have q. So in f we have q is equal to p over 3 minus t, and this is all squared. So we are required to make t the subject of the formula. So we need to remove this square root. So we remove a square root by squaring both sides. So we need to square both sides. So by squaring means that you make the thing to the power 2. So squaring a square root removes the square root. So here from the right hand side you'll have p 3 minus t. So we'll have q squared is equal to p over 3 minus this. So because you want the t, which is now the t is in the denominator, so we need to put it in the numerator. So we multiply by 3 minus t both sides, 3 minus t both sides. So this would cancel this, and this side will be left with p, and this side will have q squared multiplying 3 minus t. Then we are not done, because we want to make what, to make t the subject of the formula. So what we need to do from here, okay, so what we need to do from here is that since we have q squared multiplying 3 minus t, which is equal to p, since we want t, so we need to expand the brackets, because you can't deal with t while it's inside brackets. So what we can do, so if you expand brackets, means that you multiply in the q squared. So you would have 3q squared minus t q squared equal to p. So we have t in this term. So it's either we take this term that side, or we take this term that side. But I would say let's take the minus tq squared that side, so that we make it positive. Then we'll take the p that side. Okay, but okay, this So that, how do we do it? So we'll add, so what we're going to do, we'll add a t q squared both sides. So we'll have this side will be left with 3q squared, and then we need to take the p now. So if we subtract p both sides, so if we subtract p both sides, so we'll have 3q squared minus p, which is equal to 2q squared. So what we have, so we have 3q squared minus p is equal to 2q squared. And then after doing that, we simply divide. So we need to divide by q squared because we want to make t the subject of the formula. So divide by q squared both sides. So okay, but from this step, maybe I don't know why I want to do it other way, because I suspect that you might also want to do it a different way from what I've done. So say, okay, but no problem. So let me do it this way. So suppose you wanted to remove this guy to that side. All right, so you can do that as well. So because this guy is added this side as a positive, yeah, this is positive, so you need to subtract 3q both side minus 3q squared both sides. So you'll be left with negative t q squared is equal to p minus 3 q squared. So you will have negative q squared equal to p minus 3q squared. So okay, maybe let me write it again. So we'll have negative t times q squared is equal to p minus 3q squared. So now we need to leave t as a subject of the formula. So here what you can do now, okay, maybe let me write it like this, just to be convenient. So this is the same thing. So now if it's like this, so because I want t to be alone on this side, so I'll divide negative q squared has multiplied t, so we'll do the opposite of multiplying, which is dividing. So we'll need to divide by negative q squared both sides, negative q squared both sides. So I'll be left with t is equal to, okay, let me use a different pen. So we'll be left with p minus 3q squared over negative q squared. So you can't leave okay, maybe, so p minus 3q squared divided by negative q squared. So let me proceed. So here we'll have to simplify this. So we have p minus 3q divided by negative q squared. But you can't have so to sort the negative in the denominator, this is the same thing as multiplying by negative 1 the numerator. So you can't leave an answer like that. So, and when you do that, you'll find that this is simply, so this would be negative p plus 3q squared all over q squared. So you'll see that So when you do that, you recognize that this is actually the same thing as we've obtained before. uh, so this t is equal to, if we put it in a nice way, so this will be 3 q squared minus p over q squared, which is what we have obtained. So okay, so now let's go to, I've done F, so now let's go to question 3, where we need to transpose. So we need to transpose. Can you see if I've not done? Okay, so we need to transpose. So in question 3, let's do A, where we need to make R the subject of the formula. So in A, we have V is equal to 1 over 3 times pi times r squared times h. So we need to make r the subject of the formula. So it would be convenient to rewrite this and put the r at the back, maybe something like this. So please watch this carefully. So I've made put the r at the back, so that, okay, maybe before even I get there, so there's something we need to sort. So here we need to sort the 3, which is dividing. So we need to multiply by 3 both sides. Multiply by 3 both sides, and then this would give us, okay, maybe before I even do that, because this will confuse me. This will confuse you. Just forget about this part. So you can agree with me that now we need to multiply 3 both sides to remove the 3 from the denominator. So this will cancel this. So this side we have 3v equal to pi rh. What I'm saying is that you can rewrite the pi r squared h as pi h r squared, so that now if you have 3v equal to pi h r squared, you can clearly see that now you can simply, because you want r, so we divide by pi h both sides. So divide by pi h both sides. So here we'll be left with r squared is equal to, so you'll have 3v is equal to pi h is equal to r squared. So okay, so we have 3v over pi h is equal to r squared. So remember the opposite. So remember the opposite of squaring is taking square root. So we need to take the square root of this. We need to take the square root of this. So we're taking the square root both sides. So if you take the square root, the right hand side will be simply r, because it's simply removing the square. And then the left hand side will have 3v pi h all under the square root. So this will be r as the subject of the formula. So this is question 3. So we're making r the subject of the formula. So let's go to okay, let's go to okay, maybe C is okay. I think C is okay. Let's go to D. So let's go to D. So in D we have G. Okay, in D we have G is equal to 2t over square root of p plus q. So we're required to make p the subject of the formula. So you see that you can remove the denominator by multiplying it both sides. So you can remove the denominator by multiplying it both sides. So we need to multiply square root of p plus q both sides. So this will cancel this, and then from the right hand side we're left with 2t, and then here the left hand side we have y multiplying the square root of p plus q, right? So now we need to remove the y. So we remove the y by dividing it both sides. So such that what we're going to be left with, it will be the square root of p plus q, which is equal to 2t over y. So please watch these steps carefully. So because maybe, okay, I think you see that you can't multiply in here, you can't remove the brackets here, so it will be convenient, you can't multiply in something like this. Okay, even if I can put it this in this way, you can't sort this is not allowed. So what you do, you can sort, you can expand if the brackets are in the power not 1, but in the power half or something, or squared or something, as long as it's not 1. So you cannot expand this, so you can't deal this problem by expanding. So that's why it is convenient to divide by y both sides. You see that? So that's why I divided by y both sides, so that I remove this y, and then I will then take the opposite of taking a square root, which is squaring. So I will then square both sides to remove the square root. So let's go over that. So let's go over that. So here, so if I divide by y both sides, so the left hand side I'll be left with the square root. So this will be the square root of p plus q equal to the 2 times t all over y. So to remove the square root, I need to square, remember. So I will square. So by squaring, I mean I make this to the power 2. So I need to do this both sides. So I also need to make this part power of 2. So if I take the power of 2 from a square root, so I'll be left with what is inside, which is p plus q. So this side, there's no need. Okay, I can. Okay, now let's not sort it. Let's just write it as it is. And then, because what do I want to make as a subject of the formula? So we are in D, so we want to make P the subject of the formula. So we need to subtract Q both sides, subtract Q both sides. So we'll have as our final, so as our final we have P is equal to 2y all squared minus Q. So this will be our final answer. So maybe I want to take I want to focus in this part. So in this part only. Okay, maybe let me write it. So in the 2, okay, squared. So this part you can so we have 2 over y squared. If they say, okay, you can leave the answer not simplified, because as long as they've not specified, but let's say if they specified, so you will need to work this term. So here, remember this rule, this rule, must know the rules, this rule. So we apply that rule. So here, and also the same. This is the same. There's another rule. So I think you know this one. So where this would be a squared over b squared. So these are the rules, basic rules you should be knowing, and then now you're applying them. So here you can see now that here you have 2 squared 2t squared all over y squared, and this will be 4t squared all over y squared. So this part, so you must maybe practice it and see if you can show that this is the same as this. So I would like you to do it. So now maybe let's proceed to f. Okay, let me do e, f. Let me do the rest. The more I do the problems, the more the picture becomes clear. So that's what I hope. So here we have, so from D we have go to E. So in E we are required to make T the subject of the formula. So we have P is equal to the square root of 2t minus 1. So now the square root is only in the numerator and we have r in the denominator. So we want to make t the subject of the formula. So it would be convenient to remove the denominator. Oh, sorry, no. So to remove the denominator, which is r, the r is divided, so the opposite will be multiplying. So to remove it, so here this will cancel this, and you'll have 1 here, and then 1 times the square root of 2t minus 1. So the right hand side will be the square root of 2t minus 1, and then the left hand side will be r times p. So, and then now how do we remove a square root? So we remove a square root by squaring. Squaring means taking the power of 2. So we take the power of 2 both sides. So from the left hand side we have r p to the power 2, and this side, because we have removed the square root, so this will be what is inside, which is 2t minus 1. So now, because we want to make, if I'm not mistaken, if you want to make t the subject of the formula, so we'll need to add 1 both sides. So we'll add 1 both sides. So if rp squared plus 1 is equal to 2t. So let me write it in a new page. So this will be rp all squared plus 1 equal to 2t. Remember, we're making t the subject of the formula, so our final step will be removing these 2. So remove the 2. The 2 is multiplied the t, so we need to divide the 2 both sides. So this will cancel out. So here we have t, and the left hand side we have rp squared plus 1 all over 2. You can leave the answer and like this unless they say they simplify. So if they say simplify, you will need to sort this term. So which will be r squared p squared, and then everything plus 1 over 2, and then we'll have it like this. So this would be a simplified way of writing that. So let's go to the next one, which will be f. So let's go to f. So in f we have q. So in f we have q is equal to 4y over square root of x minus 2y. So here we are required to make x. So we are required to make x the subject of the formula. So we can remove, first we need to remove the denominator. So we can remove the denominator by multiplying, because it has divided, so we need to remove it by multiplying. So we need to multiply it both sides. So this will be square root of 2 of x minus 2y. So this will cancel this, and then from the right hand side we left with 4y, and then from the left hand side we have q times x square root of x minus 2y. And then remember that we can't uh, multiply in here. We can't multiply in here. We can't remove the square root by multiplying in, so we need to divide by q both sides. So divide by q both sides, so that this cancels this. So we have, okay, all right, let me open a new page. So here I open a new page, so we have, so we'll be left with square root of x minus 2y, which is equal to qy over qy over q. Oh, no, this is 4y. This is, sorry, this is 4y. So this is 4y. So this is 4y over q. So now, because we see that there's a square root on the left hand side, so the opposite, or to remove a square root, we square. So we need to square both sides. So I think you see how I write a bracket and then I square. So this means that we square the whole thing here. So if I square, the left hand side will be what is inside, which is inside the square root, which is x minus 2y. So this side will have 4y, all 4y divided by q all squared. So because I want x as a subject of the formula, I will need to remove the minus 2y. So I will remove the minus 2y by adding 2y both sides. So this will be x is equal to 4y over q all squared plus 2y. So this would be x as the subject of the formula, or we have transposed x. So now let's go to G, where we want to make b the subject of the formula. So in G we have a, so in G we have a is equal to b. Okay, here it is. So we want here we have a is equal to the square root of b squared plus c squared. So we want to make b the subject of the formula. Since we have a square root, how do we remove a square root? We remove a square root by squaring. So we need to square both sides. So from the left hand side we have a squared. So here by squaring a square root, we are left with what is inside, which is b squared plus c squared. So then we can subtract, c squared both sides. So when you do that, we have a squared minus c squared is equal to b squared. Now to have b alone, so we'll need to take the square root both sides. So here we'll be left with b. So we have our final answer will be the square root of a squared minus c squared is equal to b. So we've made b the subject of the formula. So in H, okay, we do H. So in H is almost the same, just that now we have a 2a dividing. So in H, so let's go to H. So in H we have L is equal to the square root. So the square root is in the numerator. So square root of b squared minus 4ac. So all divide by 2a. So we want to make b the subject of the formula, so it will be convenient to remove the denominator. So how do we do that? So we remove the denominator by multiplying by 2a both sides, multiplying by 2a both sides, so that this would cancel this. So from the left hand side we have 2al, and this side we are left with b square root of b squared minus 4ac. So now we need to remove the square root. How do we do that? We remove a square root by squaring, so we need to square both sides. So if we square a square root, we'll be left what is inside, which is b squared minus 4ac, and this side, just write it as it is, so it will be 2al all squared. So this will be 2al all squared is equal to b squared minus 4ac. 4 times a times c. So let's open a new page. So we have what do we have? We have 2al all squared is equal to b squared minus 4ac. So because we want b, so we'll need to remove the negative 4ac. By how do we do that? We need to add it both sides. So 4ac both sides plus 4ac both sides, so that this guy is 0 becomes 0. So that the right hand side will be left with b squared, and then the left hand side will have 2al all squared plus 4ac. So now how do we remove a square? We remove a square by taking a square root. So we need to take a square root. Maybe before I do that, let me show that the whole thing is being squared. So I need to take the square root of all these things, all what is inside. So I take the square root both sides. So what I'll be left with is the square root of maybe of 2al squared plus 4ac, and then must show that this is all squared. So this is the thing that is all squared. So this will be equal to b. So we have made b the subject of the formula. So let's go to the last question, which is question 4, where also we need what do we need to do? So we need to transpose. So let's go to a question 4a. So question 4a, we have, okay, we need to make a the subject of the formula on transpose a. So we have c is equal to 2 times the square root of a plus b over a, and you need to make a the subject of the formula. So here, as you can see, it would be convenient to remove these 2. So how do we do that? So we need to divide by 2 both sides, so that we have c over 2 is equal to the square root of a plus b over a. So how do we remove a square root? We remove a square root by squaring. So we need to square both sides. So when we square, okay, me like this. So when we square, we open a new page. So when we square here, we have, so we'll have c over what? Over 2. So it will be c over 2 squared, which is equal to, because we have removed the square root, so we'll have what is inside, which is a plus b over a. So now what are we going to do? So it's either we multiply by a both sides, and then okay, but I will prefer that maybe okay, we multiply by a both sides. So we need to remove a, so we need to remove a from the denominator, so we multiply a both sides. So here this a cancel this, and then we'll be left with a plus b is equal to a times c divided by 2 all squared. So now we need to take we need to take so now we need to take this a to that side, so we subtract a because here it is positive, so we need to subtract a both sides, so it will be minus a, so minus a. So what is that? So we have a c over 2 all squared minus a is equal to b. So let's open a new page. So what do we have? So we have a c over 2 squared minus a is equal to b. So since you can see that we have a here, we have a here, the next step will be to factor that a. So if we factor a, what do we have inside? So inside we have uh, inside we have c over 2 squared minus 1, which is equal, this whole thing this is equal to b. So since we want a here, so we need to divide by this part both sides. So we need to divide by this part both sides. So this will cancel this and be left with a is equal to this thing. So a is equal to b over c over 2 squared minus 1. So we have made a subject of the formula. So now let's go to b. So now let's go to b. So in b we need to make m the subject of the formula. So in b we make m the subject of the formula. So we have p is equal to 3 m squared plus n squared over m squared. So here as you can see, you need to multiply. So here you need to multiply by m squared to remove the m from the denominator. So this will cancel this, so we'll have p m squared is equal to 3 m squared plus n squared. Because we are required to make n the subject of the formula, so we can collect like terms. How we do that? We can take this okay, we can take this term that side. So here it has added, so we need to do the opposite, which is subtracting. So we need to subtract 3m squared both sides, 3m squared both sides. If we do that, we have that p m squared minus 3m squared is equal to n squared. So let me write it down so that I can open a new board. So this will be p m squared minus 3 m squared is equal to n squared. So here can we write, so we have p m squared minus 3 m squared, which is equal to n squared. You can see that we have m squared here, we have m squared here. How do we sort this? So we need to factor out m squared. So what will be left in the bracket will be p minus 3, which is equal, this whole thing is equal to n squared. So since we want m squared, we want m, but we have m squared multiplying the brackets of p minus 3, so we need to remove maybe the p minus 3 first. So we divide divide p minus 3 both sides. So this will cancel this, so we'll be left with m squared is equal to n squared over p minus 3. So we have m squared is equal to n squared over p minus 3. So our next step, so we have m squared is equal to n squared over p minus 3. So since we want m, not m squared, so how do we remove a square? But how do we remove squaring? We take a square root. So to remove the power of 2, we take the square root both sides. So we take square root both sides. So the left hand side will be left with m, and then here we'll be left with the square root of n squared divided by p minus 3. So we have made m the subject of the formula. So let's quickly go to C, where we need to make t the subject of the formula. So in C we have r, so we have r is equal to the square root of t minus s, t squared minus s squared. So the square root is in the numerator, so then divide by t. So we have a t here, so we need to make t the subject of the formula. So as you can see here, we need to remove the t from the denominator by multiplying it. So this t will cancel this t, so the left hand side we have tr, so here we have the square root of t squared minus s squared, like this. So a convenient way now is to remove this square root. So how do you remove the square root? You remove it by power 2. So we need to, by squaring, so we need to square both sides. So we need to make these terms power of 2. So and then here we have 2 tr all squared is equal to, so here we'll have what is inside, so it will be t minus s squared. So as you can see now that we have no way of running around the fact that we need to sort this part. So here we need to take this the squaring, so we need to take the power of 2. So that's where you apply this method or this rule, where you have, okay, if you square this, so you have a squared times b squared. So this is where you need to apply that. So we have tr squared is equal to t squared minus s squared. So let's quickly go over that. So we have what? We have tr squared equal to t squared minus s squared. So I say that we need to apply. So I say that we need to apply this rule, where we have a b all squared, which will be equal to a squared times b squared. So in this case here, so here we'll have t squared times r squared. So this will be equal to t squared minus s squared. So now what we can do is to multiply, no, just to subtract. So need to subtract. So need to subtract t squared r squared both sides. Tr. So the left hand side will be left with 0. So this side will be having t, and then here we'll have minus tr squared minus s squared. So now we need to remove the s squared, so because it's subtracted, so we need to add it. So here we'll add s squared both sides. So we'll have s squared is equal to t squared minus t squared r squared. So let me open a new page. So here what we have, So here we'll have what do we have? We have s squared. I'm not mistaken. We're adding it to a subtraction, or we're adding it. So here we have t squared minus t r squared. So now what we'll do, because you see, as you can see that we have t here and we have t here, so we need to factor out the t squared. So if we put t squared out, what do we have inside? We have 1 minus r squared, and the left hand side we have s squared. So because we want t and we need to remove this part, so we need to remove this part, so by dividing it both sides. So what we'll have is that t squared is equal to s squared over 1 minus r squared. So now so we have s squared over 1 minus r squared is equal to what? T squared. But we're required to find t. So t squared, so how do we simplify that? How do we sort that? So we sort a square number by taking the square root. So we remove the 2 by taking the square root, the power 2, remove the power 2 by taking the square root. So we'll take the square root both sides. So remember, we're taking the square root of the whole thing here, the whole thing. So the right hand side will have t, and the left hand side will have s. I will take the square root of s. Okay, you'd have the square root of s squared minus 1 minus r squared. So we've made t the subject of the formula, which is the same thing as transposing. So let's go to d. Okay, maybe d. Okay, let me do d, but d is almost the same as what we've worked above, but for so that the thing sinks in, so that this problem sinks in. So let's do it. So here we have d. So here we have d. So d equal to 5a squared over 2a squared minus b, so all squared. So here we need to make a the subject of the formula. So the first step now would be to remove the square root. How do we do that? So we remove the square root by squaring. So we need to square both sides. So here when we square both sides, we have the left hand side is d squared and the right hand side would be 5a squared over 2 a squared minus b. So okay, so we have d squared 5a squared over 2a squared minus b. So let me open a new page. So what we have, so we have d squared, oops, so we have d squared equal 5a squared over 2a squared minus b, and we want to make a the subject of the formula. So here we need to remove the denominator, which is 2a squared minus b, so we need to multiply it both sides. So multiply by 2a squared minus b both sides. So here this would cancel here. So from the right hand side we have 5a squared, and from the left hand side you have d squared multiplying 2a squared minus b. So when you remove the bracket from the left hand side, you have that 2d squared a squared minus d squared b is equal to 5a squared. So as you can see, there's an a here, there's an a here. So either we take this guy to that side, or we take that guy to that side. But let's take the 5a squared that side. So how do we do that? So we subtract by 5a squared both sides. 5a squared both sides. So what we'll have is that we'll have d 2d squared a squared minus 5a squared minus d squared b equal to 0. So right, so we have 2, so we have 2d a squared minus 5a squared minus d b equal to 0. So maybe before we even sort this part, because let's take this part to that side, and then okay, so how do we do that? So here it's subtraction, so the opposite of it will be adding. So we need to add d squared b both sides, d squared both sides, so that this will be 0. So what we will left is that we have 2d a squared minus 5a squared, which is equal to d squared b. All right, so now we have to factor out a squared. So we need to factor out a squared. So we have a squared outside the brackets. So what is inside the brackets will be 2d minus 5. And this will be equal to d squared b. So this will be 2d minus 5db. So let me open a new page. So now, okay, so we have a squared. Okay, I'll factor it out actually. Okay, let me write it like this, because I think I sense I did a mistake somewhere. So this will be d 2a 2. Oh, what am I doing? Okay, so let's write it like this. So 2 d squared a squared minus 5a squared, and remember taking this guy this side, so like this. So here remember that we need to factor out this guy, so we need to factor out a squared. So what will be left inside is 2d squared minus 5 equal to 2 is equal to d squared times b. So now we need to divide, because we want a, so we need to divide this guy. Divide by 2d minus 5 both sides, 2d squared minus 5. So this will cancel this, so we'll be left with a squared is equal to d squared b over 2d squared minus 5. So we have a squared is equal to d squared b over 2d squared minus 5. So we need to do the last step. So we're given that a squared, so we've worked that a squared is equal to d squared b over 2d squared minus 5. So our step now will be to take the square root. To remove the power 2, we need to take the square root. So we need to take the square root both sides, and it should be a square root of everything here. So the left hand side we have a, and the right hand side we have the square root of d squared b divided by 2d squared minus 5. So we have made a the subject of the formula. So now let's quickly go to e. So let's quickly go to e. So in E we have F, so let's go to E. So in E we have F. Okay, not do E, let's do K. Let's do K. What? Let's do F actually. So let's do F. So let's do F. So in F we have K. So K is 2 times, oops. So if 2 times alpha, this is called alpha, then R H plus 2 alpha R squared. So we're required to make H. Okay, we're required to make H. So this is, so we're required to make H the subject of the formula. So maybe you can subtract this guy both sides. So we need to subtract this guy both sides. How do we do that? So we say minus 2 alpha r squared minus 2 alpha r squared both sides, so that this guy becomes 0. So the left hand side we have k minus 2 alpha r squared, which is equal to 2 alpha r h, right? So here we need to what we need to make h the subject of the formula. So you can see that you can remove, we want h to be alone, so we remove this guy. So this will be 2 alpha r divided both sides, 2 alpha r divided both sides. So we'll have that what we're going to have, we're going to have that k minus 2 alpha r squared over 2 alpha r is equal to h. So we've made h the subject of the formula, which is the same as transposing. So we do G and then we are done. So in G, there we are done. So let me do G. So G says that we have S, which is equal to square root of a squared minus b squared and divide by 2b. So we want to make a the subject of the formula. So what we need to do is multiply by 2b both sides, multiply by 2b both sides. So we'll have 2bs is equal to the square root of a squared minus b squared, and then we need simply to take what is the opposite. How do we remove a square root? By squaring. So we need to square both sides. So we need to square both sides, and what we left here is that we have a squared, but this is what is inside actually, is a squared minus b squared. So this side we have 2bs all squared. So we have 2bs all squared is equal to a squared minus b squared. So we are required to make a the subject of the formula. So here, okay, let me write again, 2bs all squared equal to, so this will be equal to what? Or a squared minus b squared. So it will be convenient to remove this guy to that side. How do we do that? So we need to add b squared both sides. So add b squared both sides. So we'll have 2bs all squared plus b squared, so which is equal to a squared. So how do you remove squaring? So we need to take a square root. So we remove the power 2 by squaring. So we need to take, oh, by taking a square root actually. So we need to take the square root both sides. So this will be a, and this side will be square root of 2bs squared plus b squared all under the square root. So we've made a the subject of the formula. So this was a very interesting exercise. So I hope that you will redo the problems with the help of this video.